Welcome to Mai Tai Gaming. We're continuing our playthrough of the AOM mod on Grand Tactician, the Civil War. The last episode we suffered a defeat at Springfield, our second in Missouri. We were going to reorganize Army of Tennessee's and these forces over here. However, I think there's some house rules that I've seen that I kind of tend to like, where you don't reorganize until you've passed Army reorganization in policies down here, which would be Military 2, and then the Army Reorganization and First Conscription Act, April 16th, 1862. So, I am going to wait on that. We're going to continue to fight with these forces that we have. We'll use the additional volunteers that we now have. Quite a few. Here, we'll just pick this up. We use these as reinforcements. Obviously, a lot will be needed for the Arkansas troops. Polk's command. And hopefully we can see continued action in Virginia. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started and pick up when something happens. Alright, first thing that I've got going on, we're moving our armies back to Fort Smith. We're going to take these guys off scouting. I want to get those guys their supplies back. Alright. And looks like Fort Pillow has been constructed. Alright, HMS Warrior Commission, hull of iron, the first of its kind, 40 guns. So, the British, the Royal Navy, laying down HMS Warrior as the first iron armored frigate. The Thames Shipbuilding Company frigate sports an impressive 44-pounder guns, 26 68-pounder guns, and 10 110-pounder guns. With a belt of 4.5 inches, it is now one of the British Navy's most formidable ships. Pony Express, that started operating on April 3rd, 1860 between Missouri and California, has now ceased operations and is closing down. The service during its 18th month of operation reduced the time for messages to be delivered between the Atlantic and Pacific coasts to about 10 days. Heavily funded by government subsidies, the service eventually ended up being a financial failure, with $200,000 lost and grossing only $90,000. The service relied on fast riders and relay horses along the delivery route. Many such riders gained fame, like William Buffalo Bill Cody or Robust Pony Bob Halsum. The service also saw its own attacks when May 1860 Paulite Indians attacked the Pony Express station on Carson River. During this Paulite Indian War, only one mail delivery was lost. It was not the lack of courage or dash of the fast riders, but the Transcontinental Telegraph convention held in London. This will be news has arrived from London, where the European superpowers, Great Britain, France, and Spain, have held a meeting agreeing to what is called the Convention of London, which is an effort to extract the repayment of debts from the President of Mexico, Benito Juarez. The Europeans are said to have agreed on a military adventure to pressure Mexico. What the French Emperor Napoleon III calls a foreign policy commitment to free trade is a prime example of Europe taking advantage of the American Civil War. The United States is in no position to enforce the Monroe Doctrine of 1823, warning against further European imperialism in all of the Americas. While not officially recognizing the Confederacy, the French clearly see her as a buffer nation to protect their Latin reign. The French capitalists are also unofficially supporting the Confederate cause with funds. What this development means for the Civil War remains to be seen. All of our forces have regrouped around Fort Smith. I think I definitely want to move Pike over here, maybe the Missouri State Guard down here. One of the things we were thinking about doing after that last defeat in Springfield is Benjamin McCullough should probably go. Yeah. He is from Texas. He is a veteran. He was a ranger, fought in the Texas Revolution and the Mexican War. But I think we need someone better. My first thought is to go with Earl Van Dorn. The second thought is to throw PGT Beauregard in there. I think either of them would serve admirably in that position. And the third option for me would have been to assign A.S. Johnson to this theater. He is a full general and too highly ranked. So with that, I think in reality PGT Beauregard probably needs the command. I mean, he's hero of Fort Sumter, hero of First Battle in Virginia. So we will go ahead and appoint him as commander of the Western Army. Once corps arrive, I think we make him put the Indian Army and the Missouri State Guard maybe under him as corps and expand him up. But that'll be our reorganization for now. I think Sterling Price probably has too much political influence to be dismissed from duty. Diplomacy 1 has been enacted by us. So we were going for 2 at the same time. So now we have 7 days left on military 2. I want to do this close to historical, so April 16th-ish. Right now it would take 124 days, which would mean we just start it now. It might be what we start immediately after military 2, but we'll see. 7 days. Provisional president officially elected. On February 9th, Jefferson Davis was elected provisional president. Alexander H. Stephens, the provisional vice president. On March 11th, a permanent constitution was adopted. On May 21st, the Congress of the Confederacy passed an act to put in operation the government under the permanent Constitution of the Confederate States of America. This included the time and date for the presidential elections. In this election, Davis and Stephens ran without opposition. The election effectively confirmed the decision that had been made by the Provisional Confederate Congress early in the year. 55 electoral votes were needed to win, and Davis secured a total of 109 with 97% of the popular vote. This result can be considered unanimous. Unlike in the United States and the Confederacy, the president should not be re-elected after serving for 6 years. This official inauguration will take place on February 22nd, 62. Military Policy 2 enacted. The CS Army is receiving more support from the politicians. Recent decisions have made further military funding available. This funding can be used to establish new recruiting offices across the states and to increase internal security. The funding of private contractors allows the strengthening of blockades as well as securing the flow of trade in the event of enemy blockades. As the size of the military increases, reorganization is required to make armies more flexible in their operations. A corps organization is introduced. Corps are capable of having independent operations as they have their own logistical support. Grand armies like those of Napoleon can now be formed from the volunteer soldiers. As the armies grow, new volunteers are harder to find. The introduction of conscription or bounties paid to volunteers may be possible solutions. The pool of available soldiers to fight for independence needs to be increased. 124 days, I think we have to start this. King Cotton 2. Agricultural policies allow new acts that will improve crop exports to Europe. The maximum amount of annual agricultural subsidies is increased per policy level, allowing financing of further agricultural projects and construction of new farms and plantations. But what does it lead to? Restricted cotton trade, which cotton demand in Europe plus 10%, European relations plus 15%. Alright, we've used 4 of 8 policies. Let's go ahead and get King Cotton 2. The Trent Affair. On November 8th, a Union Navy steamer stopped the British ship Trent and captured 2 Confederate diplomats on their way to Great Britain to negotiate recognition of the Confederacy by the British government. The diplomats, James M. Mason and John Slidell, were brought ashore yesterday and put in prison. While in the North the action is celebrated as just and manly, the British are furious over the incident. It is said that this incident, if not resolved quickly, could lead to a deterioration of relations between the British and the Union. There are reports of British troops preparing to mobilize with the British forces in Canada under General Sir Fenwick Williams being strengthened and receiving tens of thousands of rifles, as well as an invasion fleet being constructed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in England. It is clear that the confrontation between the British and Union is a real possibility. The political leadership in the South is furious as well, but at the same time hopeful that this incident will infuriate the British so far as to cause official recognition of the Confederacy. Probably the closest the Confederacy ever actually got to European intervention. It was the Trent Affair. Alright, looks like the U.S. has selected Industrialization 2 as their next policy. Let's just take a look. They were doing recruitment offices, 11,000. Department of the Northeast to operate in Maine, because they need an army in Maine. And then the rest are fleets. Okay. Confederate politicians have agreed to support the nation's agricultural efforts with further funding. Increased subsidies will make plantations across the Confederacy more profitable, increasing the agricultural output, especially of cotton. At the same time, a proposition to weaponize cotton has been made. If the cotton trade to Europe were to cease, maybe the Europeans would be forced to intervene in the American Civil War on behalf of the Confederacy. The textile mills of the old continent required constant flow of cotton. Any disruption would harm the profits of European industries. One way to create an international cotton shortage would be to simply hold cotton in Confederate ports, in effect, to hold King Cotton a hostage in negotiations with the Europeans. Another use for cotton has been found in the Confederate States Navy. Cotton bales provide some protection against gunfire if good quality iron is not available. So, with that, first off, good quality iron in the Confederacy, rarely available. Cottonclads had some success. All the King Cotton policy did, in reality, was allow for Egypt and India's cotton production to skyrocket. They were already minor production sources and more expensive than the slave-run Confederate plantations. But as soon as the cotton supply got cut off, Europe just found another market to buy their cotton from, and those markets exploded. So all it did was send the money that should have been going to the Confederacy to help fund her war support, since that's the one export that the Confederacy had. They lost out on all the money. All right, with that, I think we're close enough. Let's go ahead and do the Army Reorganization and First Conscription Act. That'll take 4 months. So we'll take us close to the historical April 16th. And then we will begin reorganizing some of the armies. I think reorganizing in a fashion similar to what we did in Virginia to start with. All right, 2 things. One, the Department of Kansas has been trekking across Illinois and Indiana on foot to the east. Not sure where their final destination is. I wonder if the Union's pulling troops out of Missouri, maybe to attack Grafton, because that seems to be the trajectory they are on. The other item was our 5,000 Enfield rifle muskets have been imported. So let's take a look at weapons and orders available. Yeah, let's go ahead. We'll do 10,000 this time. With the armies, one of the things I'm going to do is hit Springfield again. We did not put Beauregard in command of this force for no reason, which also means he needs support. The infield's some of the best weapons we can possibly get right now. We're actually going to switch Claiborne out. We're going to get all these guys upgraded. Oh, Sharp's rifles. That would be a thing of beauty. What else can we go with here? Should be Lorenz's of it. Yes. Here we go. Let's get the Lorenz's. Rifles. So the cavalry are using mixed cavalry weapons. I don't believe that's a good thing. I would rather get these guys over to something else. The Enfield Musketoon, 290 yards. Poor accuracy. Mediocre. Poor. Mediocre. Holland North is poor. Mediocre. Mediocre. Sharp's Carbine. And none of these are actually very accurate weapons. But let's go ahead and upgrade the cavalry also with whatever we happen to have on hand. I think it's bad policy on our part. Oof, 1st Arkansas Cavalry, you're hurting. Alright, I'm going to give them the Burnsides. 158. Yeah, let's go ahead and replenish that unit. That's not where we need to be. As far as artillery goes, let's get some rifles and smoothbores possibly. Yeah, the Napoleons. Alright. The Indian Army has rifles already. Price. I will upgrade your cannons. Let us go with... Yeah, let's go with the Iron Napoleons. And some Jameses. And then... Frost. Oof, I want to replace these commanders badly. But Frost, let's get your infantry. Let's at least get them with reboards as opposed to smoothbore. So 250 yards versus 285. Poor accuracy, 2.75 rounds a minute, 2.0. Maybe the mixed smoothbores aren't what we need. Actually, the muskets, Springfield muskets. I'm glad that I like how this mod's changed the weapons around. It makes each weapon more useful, if that makes sense. Like normally, I would just skip over the muskets and go straight to whatever was going to be available to me. Yeah, let's get these cavalrymen upgraded too. I do not want a repeat. We're going to make sure that this army is at least somewhat prepared for action, as they are almost ready. Yeah. Okay, we are looking at... So we do have organization reform. What does this give us? Armies of multiple corps will allow much improved command and control in the field. So in theory, this gives us corps. But I believe it should be the next one that actually gives us corps. So with that being said, we do have some other options here. We have the cavalry reform. This one gives us cavalry brigades. Don't want to do that till we're doing corps. Cavalry reform, this gives us horse artillery. which I'm going to say yes to. The Confederate rifles, this is the Fayetteville Rifle, Musket, and Richmond rifles. Fayetteville's were the Springfield Armory's machines captured from Harper's Ferry. That would have already happened in our timeline right now. So I do believe that having the Fayetteville's and the Richmond rifles on hand is historically accurate for where we are. So let's go and get that as an option also. And then we'll take a look and see what is available here. So yeah, some of these have already been begun production. The Richmonds. Fayetteville's wouldn't have started until those presses and whatnot got down to Fayetteville, North Carolina. So they're very similar. They were all based upon, the Springfield rifle. The Fayetteville, a copy of the U.S. Model 1855 rifle musket, similar to the Springfield rifle, except for Maynard primer and a sword bayonet, which I think is just what the Confederacy had on hand. Alright, so Richmond, the carbines, let's start at 1,000. Fayetteville, let's say 5,000. Richmond's, let's say 5,000. Let's begin to get some standardization. That 5,000 is going to take a year almost. Okay. The Trent Affair resolved. After the Trent Affair, where the Union Navy forced a neutral British ship to halt and hand over Confederate diplomats Mason and Slidell, relations between the Union and the British Empire had been ice cold. While the Union politicians were planning their next steps to resolve the affair, reports say the British started full-blown preparations for an invasion. While the release of the imprisoned diplomats has eased tensions, the British preparations have bolstered their strength both in Canada and at sea. Rumors indicate that the British Army in Canada is now some 20,000 men strong, well-equipped, armed, and with up to tens of thousands of militiamen training in reserve. Lord Lyons, the British minister to the U.S., was summoned by Secretary of State William H. Seward 2 days ago, and he received the news of the release. The crisis was effectively over. While the Confederacy is disappointed by the events, the diplomats are on their way to London to negotiate British recognition of the Confederacy. December 1st comes up. Let's take a look at our intelligence. Military 2 for the Union. They've completed administrative reform and monitors. The federal relations to Spain are currently at 0%. Estimated 2,900 men have been recruited into one brigade. One new ship has been started. And the Federal Army's morale is up 4%, it looks like. And our economic report, triple B's, which is good. Debt increased by 50 million. Current war liabilities at 370 million. Let's see here. Tax revenues decreased 11 million. Our export volume was 154 million. And 315 million of goods was imported. All right. Our economy lacks flour, iron, artillery, and ammunition. And we are full of salt, wood, and cotton. All right, the Union has finished military policy 2. Medal of Honor. Personal decorations and military medals are considered a European tradition in the U.S. The first proposal for a battlefield decoration for valor was submitted to Brevet Lieutenant General Winfield Scott, the commanding general of the U.S. Army, by Lieutenant Colonel Edward D. Townsend. But this was turned down. In October, the Secretary of the Navy, Gideon Welles, adopted the idea of decoration to recognize and honor distinguished naval service. On December 9th, the chairman of the Naval Affairs submitted Bill S-82 as an act to further promote the efficiency of the Navy. This bill included a provision for 200 such medals of honor to be bestowed upon such Navy service members who distinguished themselves through gallantry in action. On this day, which would be December 21st, President Lincoln signed this bill into law. The Army shall also receive similar such medals in the near future to enlisted men of the Army and volunteer forces who have distinguished or may distinguish themselves in battle during the present rebellion. Alright, I was just looking at our naval capacity. We were not building any ships. All five are in repairs right now. I think we build some brigs. I'm going to start 5 brigs just to supplement our Navy. And January 1st has come around. Let's take a look at our projects. We can do farm mechanization. Each level of this project further increases farm output and available volunteers. I think this is a very important one for us to take. I don't think we need artillery reform yet. Austrian rifles, which would be the Lorenzes, I think is one policy that we definitely take. And I like the idea of rebuilt ironclads, maybe not this quickly. And since I was just looking at our Navy, I think between the naval military possibilities here, I think we get some ironclad gunboats. These take level 2 shipyards, not the level 3 of the rebuilt ironclads, which really the only one was the CSS Virginia. I think the rest were more of this ironclad gunboat style, while looking similar on the exterior, they were very different, smaller ships. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Still leaving our organization reform, cavalry reform, all of those just in case. And with that, I think we can maybe purchase some more ships. And let's see what just got added. Alright, we've got the ironclad gunboat ram, which we're going to start 5 of those, which is going to eat through all the iron we can possibly produce, probably. But I think that will strengthen our port defenses and river defenses very well. Here on January 19th, looks like we have completed 1,000 Whitworth rifles. We do have the Lorenzes. Let's go ahead and do 5,000 Lorenzes. Let's do another 2,000 Whitworths. And the Augustines, let's go ahead and do 5,000. Glory Hallelujah. Music and patriotic songs have been important for the Americans. And during the American Civil War, both sides have their own songs to raise spirits. On this day, a most rousing song called the Battle Hymn of the Republic has been published in the Atlantic Monthly. It's a patriotic song authored by writer and abolitionist Julia Ward Howe. The song derives from an early 1800s folk hymn, Glory Hallelujah. The chorus has been familiar since the 1850s. Now the chorus and new lyrics are used with the music of John Brown's Body. Howe heard the John Brown version of the song during a public review of troops outside Washington, D.C. She was suggested by Reverend James Freeman Clark to write new words for the fighting men's song. She did so, staying at the Willard Hotel. The Grand Herald predicts this song will become a great hit and an inspiration to Union troops, maybe even surviving the war. Which indeed it does. Alright, we do have a development. The Army of New England, with 0 soldiers, seems to have landed in Virginia. I'm going to detach D.H. Hill's division over here to West Point. I mean, are they going straight for what? They went straight for Richmond. Looks like there's also a First Corps on the move with 11,000 troops. Ah, so that's the 11,000 that this is supposed to have. Wow. Okay. Apparently 0 men, so it's just the officers, are holding... wow. Okay, DH, you know what? Stay there. You're good. I mean, is this for real? Glorious victory at Fort Cochrane. Okay. The Battle of Fort Cochrane was fought for 2 days between the Confederate Fort Cochrane garrison of some 8,200 troops and 39 guns, and the Federal Army of New England with some 0 troops. The battle raged for some 34 hours with hardly any casualties on both sides. 9 enemy soldiers have been captured and taken to our POW camps. I mean, hopefully that's just the commanding general and his staff. But it is good to see that the AI is doing a naval invasion and going after Richmond. Just can I not? I mean, I can't seem to do anything here. I would love to fight that battle. But I guess the First Corps would have to actually be somewhere nearby to do that. One other thing I need to check, and something we should probably start building, if possible, is the medical treatment. So it looks like we have a little bit up here, but let's go ahead and start with the hospitals. Build one here. I think one along here. One. Newmarket should be a good place for it. And then I think Fort Smith is an area that has become very important to us. I think a hospital should be constructed there. Memphis is currently under blockade by 6 ships and 11, so 17 ships, 150 guns, which kind of means that the Kentucky Squadron is now the Arkansas Squadron. The Memphis Squadron is now the Vicksburg 2 Squadron. We just don't have enough ships. Maybe with those ironclads, I can actually do something here. All right. I think those are needed. We'll go back. Let's see what else can happen. All right, so our 10-pounder Parrott rifles have been delivered. I wonder if that's all the Parrots. It is. Okay, so the 20-pounders, I think, is what we were going to continue. Let's get another 32 of those. And these 30-pounders, I like the big guns. I think at some point those are going to be very much needed. Now that that order is complete, I'm going to go around and probably spare you guys this part. But search around, see what artillery companies... Fort Pulaski now has 30-pounder Parrots. I want to get the Norfolk garrison that has the heavy artillery. Fort Norfolk heavy batteries, which right now are 24-pounder howitzers. I would like to get those beefed up to the 30-pounders. I think these... I mean, Fort Norfolk's going to, if it's going to be besieged or anything, it's going to have Navy ships to shoot at. So I think some maybe 10-pounders would be good for the lighter battery. 5 ships have been constructed. I believe those are 5 brigs. So let's get to dispersing those here shortly. And Union Army reorganization. So to increase the number of men, they have offered bounties. Okay, so the United States should get
a core system that is going to increase their units in the field quite dramatically. Gulf Raiding Squadron has a couple brigs. We're going to beef that up with 2 more. And then we've got the Atlantic Raiding Squadron over here with a steam corvette. We're going to beef her up with 3 brigs. And let's send a schooner. So Raphael Semmes gets a decent-sized command. French invasion.
The European intervention in Mexico is proceeding in accordance with the Convention of Soledad. So far, we have seen the capture of Veracruz and European forces advancing to Orizaba, Cordoba, and Tehuacan. The city of the Campeche surrendered to the French fleet on February 27th. The latest news is the arrival of French troops under General Charles Ferdinand Latreille, Comte de Lorence, with reports indicating thousands of troops are under his command, which makes their commitment to follow the convention questionable. Already we hear rumors of the British and Spanish questioning the French ambition in Mexico. So far, the intervention force has enjoyed success, but we hear reports of Mexican Commander General Ignacio Zaragoza preparing an army to fight any further invasion attempts. What started as an intervention to settle Mexican debt may escalate into large-scale fighting. The Grand Herald will keep you informed of the latest events.
Okay, so the winter between 61 and 62, absolutely nothing really happened. It is now March 11th. Beauregard over here, now in command, is preparing to march north. So first we will group at Fayetteville. And the Indian Army will go to Carrollton. The troops are now stated as regular. So that hopefully means we're in a much better position to fight this Battle of Springfield. Still see the Army of the West. I sincerely hope that they still only have 4,600 troops. If they have 30,000, then we are in trouble.
Fugitive Slave Act annulled. Today, the U.S. Congress has enacted legislation barring Union forces from returning anyone to slavery. The officers are no longer to return captured slaves to their owners in the South. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 is part of the Compromise of 1850. It requires that all escaped slaves, upon capture, be returned to the slaver, and that all citizens and officials of the free states must cooperate. As such, it is one of the most hated pieces of legislation among Northern citizens. In the early stages of the war, the Union had no policy on people escaping from slavery, and fugitives were often returned to the slavers. General Benjamin Butler and some other generals confiscated enslaved people as contraband, refusing to surrender them back to slavery. Later, supported by Lincoln, the U.S. Congress enacted the Confiscation Act, which only applied to enslaved people used by rebel enslavers to support the Confederate cause. Next step, we'll move a touch forward. Western Army goes here. Missouri State Guard goes here. We still haven't spotted them, so there are some snows falling, but their forces are in good condition still. Okay, the Union force did just disappear. So let me move the cavalry force a little bit further forward, and I will get the infantry forces moving up also. And we got our 10,000 infield rifle muskets have been delivered. I think it is wise to continue to purchase those. Let's bump that to another 10,000, $14 million. Let's advance the cavalry a little further.
Alright. We're scouting. Hopefully we find them. Otherwise, we're going to run rampant in Missouri. If I can get to Rolla. Oh! Okay, so I think that is confirmation of the Army of the West. 4,700 troops, 10,000 guns. There is a hospital now. Okay. Missouri State Guard. You're going this way. Western Army. Please go that way. Let's begin the march. I don't want these forces to be too far apart from each other, but let's move the cavalry now also. So this battle is shaping up to be a very small version of Shiloh. Oh, here we go. Confederate Army reorganization. So we are now conscripting, and we now have the ability of the force system. I'm going to hold off on that till after this battle, and we'll probably do that in the next episode. Okay, so we have... This will be the third time we have fought this battle. I think the biggest difference here is that this time the Indian Army, our entire force, should be on the field. So, Nathaniel Lyon against PGT Beauregard. Here we go. Alright, we have the Battle of Springfield. Go ahead and hide these things. The objective is still up here. I am going to assume after 3 straight battles with them setting up on Oak Hill here, that is their intention. So with that being said, I'm going to move the Missouri State Guard on this road. We are going to move the Western Army on this road with the Indian Army in front. Now the Indian Army I'm going to take over here. Western Army I'm going to set up here. And Missouri State Guard will set up further on this side, probably in these trees. Alright, let's go ahead and begin. Let's get that force there. Price, I want you over here. And General Beauregard, if you would be so kind as to center your position on the Gwen farmhouse for the 3rd battle that'll be fought. And let's see if we were right. There they appear. Looks like they have some minor fortifications. Looks like they might even be reacting to us. These forces really haven't gained strength or anything. Let's go ahead and see what they do. They may be moving against our mounted rifles over here. These troops now have regular status, so this is not their first battle either. So Albert Pike should be in a position to actually hold them, if that's the direction they're going. Speed things along. Yeah, Patrick Claiborne is one of the newest units. Still training is poor on that unit. Probably not too far from getting them regular status. As we continue to file into position. Alright, Price, if I could get you to form up at the tree line. And Beauregard, if you would be so kind as to go into double line. Oh. Well, I guess let's do that, and we'll do the entire force. If you could center there, please. Thank you. And then Price, I need you into double line also. Union seem to know they are falling back from their fortifications. I'm going to send... That's not just cavalry. This is, I believe. Okay. I'm going to send the cavalry division around. Let's go this way. Pierce, I want you advancing up the road. Texas cavalry, move on this side. Let's go. Price, let's advance. Or actually, advance this way. I just want to make sure that they are not... So the 3rd Louisiana Infantry Regiment, yeah, we need to do some reorganization. Alright. It would appear that they have begun to at least probe our line here. Let's make it mounted. Advance this unit. Flavor. I want to go with Beauregard. No, don't go over there. I need you over here. And let's go long range with everybody. Okay. Price, or Pike. Let me see how far into the woods they've actually... I'm going to begin to bring you up behind their lines. Missouri State Guard, I want to cut them off. So if you would be so kind as to now wheel into formation over this way. Flavor's going to get here first. Of a detachment. Honestly, let's wheel the Arkansas State Troops into I need to advance. Like they may form up to go up against Price. But we have now driven off one of their regiments, the 4th Brigade. Okay. So a little overview here. They know they're penned in. Pike, I'm going to bring you literally this way. I am not... This is not messing around. Alright. Let me go ahead. What do we look like from this side? Alright. So each of these are about the same size as their Union counterparts. Oh, we do have the 1st U.S. Battalion moving forward. If I could get you guys to dismount. And then over here, the Cavalry Division will set up on Oak North Hill. Battle here. They're getting driven off. Canadians getting some revenge here. Battle line, let's move to this to there. Claiborne, let's move up here. Let's get both. Probably should be similar. Alright, Price. Let's get Beauregard defeats Lyon at Springfield. 1,800 casualties for the Union, 900 for the Confederacy. We can inspect the battlefield here. We hadn't even captured the objective yet. I would like to see. So, Army of the Confederacy, Army of the West. Oh, that's. There we go. Looks like the Indian Army. Let's see who did. 93 for the Cherokee mounted. Second Cherokee. Who's this 129? Keep coming up with that 93. Either way, the Cherokee mounted rifles did very well. They all did really well. Missouri State Guard, First Command, that's what we sent over to capture the objective. That makes sense. Second Division, showing 237 as the casualties inflicted, okay. And the Western Army, which, alright. The Yale Rifles 237 and the Arkansas State Troopers 371. Well done to both of them. The Yale Rifles number of engagements 18. Let's see here. Claiborne gets an experience point. Number of battles 1. He is It looks to be the most famous. Consolidated strength. Casualty rate 10%. Not horrible. Arkansas State troops are the best troops we have in this force right now. Alright, the battle for Springfield is won. Once this clears up, we'll build a depot here. Let's go ahead and advance. Let's get forces spread out. And we will have Missouri State Western Army needs some experience, so we'll have them build a depot. There should be there's a hospital here, which is very nice. So we'll rest up, let that depot get constructed. Now, okay, so we are seeing a lot of movement. Department of the West, Army of the Mississippi, Army of the West that we just defeated, Southwestern Missouri, with the 1st Corps, which is still mobilizing, or look like they're all going to be moving on Springfield. So, Beauregard, now that you have your major victory, you have something to, it's going to keep going here. We have the Army of the Kanawha. Yeah, I wish we had another update. But we will leave the episode there. Next episode will focus on the reorganization and the spring campaign of '62. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. We'll see you next time.